After I collapsed at work, Dad called and asked if the $3,500 allowance was enough. What allowance? I said. He went quiet. Turns out Mom had been sending it to my sister for her modeling career. Can you imagine almost dying, collapsing from sheer exhaustion and hunger, only to discover your own mother had been siphoning away thousands of dollars meant for you for years? And the ultimate betrayal? She was secretly giving it all to your sister, while you were literally wasting away. The fluorescent lights of the hospital made everything look sickly green, casting a pallor over my already pale skin. I was lying there, staring at the drip in my arm, when my phone buzzed. It was my dad. That was weird. He usually only called on Sundays. "Hey, sweetie," he said, his voice tight, the way it got when he was trying not to panic. "Your supervisor just contacted us. Are you okay?" I shifted on the uncomfortable bed, the paper crinkling beneath me. "Yeah, I'm fine. Just got a little dizzy. They're keeping me for observation, but it's probably just stress and not eating enough." Then came the pause. A long, loaded pause. Not eating enough? "Honey, isn't the allowance we've been sending sufficient? We can increase it if $3,500 a month isn't covering your expenses." My brain short-circuited. "I'm sorry." "What?" "The allowance. The money your mom transfers every month? Is it not enough for groceries and basics?" My mouth went dry. "Dad, I haven't received any allowance. Not since I graduated college 3 years ago." The silence on the other end stretched. I thought the call had dropped. When he finally spoke, his voice had changed completely. It was cold. Hard. "Stay right there. I'm calling your mother." He hung up before I could respond. I lay there, staring at the acoustic ceiling tiles, my mind racing. $3,500 a month. For 3 years. That was $126,000. Money that was supposed to be helping me survive in one of the most expensive cities in America. Money that would have made a difference as I worked 60-hour weeks at a marketing firm that barely paid me enough to cover my shoebox apartment in Queens. The nurse came in to check my vitals. My blood pressure was still low, which is why I'd face-planted in the conference room during a presentation to a major client. I'd been living on ramen, dollar pizza, and whatever free food I could scavenge from office events. I'd lost 15 pounds in 6 months, telling myself it was just the stress of trying to make it in New York. My phone rang again. "Mom, this time." "Cheyenne, there's been a misunderstanding," she started. "Where's my money?" I'd never spoken to my mother like that before. Growing up in our suburban Connecticut household, I was the good daughter, the responsible one. Straight A's. State school on scholarship to save money. Never asked for anything. It's not that simple. Sloan needed Sloan. Of course. My younger sister, the golden child, who decided college wasn't for her because she wanted to be a model. "You've been giving my money to Sloan." She had expenses. The headshots, the portfolio, the comp cards, the travel, the castings. "Do you know how expensive it is to break into modeling in Miami? And now she's finally getting somewhere. She booked a swimsuit campaign last month." I started laughing. It hurt my head, which was still pounding, but I couldn't stop. I've been eating expired yogurt from the office fridge. I'm wearing the same 3 work outfits on rotation because I can't afford new clothes. I haven't been to a dentist in 2 years, but Sloan needed headshots. "You have a job," Mom said, getting defensive. Sloan was trying to build a career. She needed support. I was building a career, too. I am building a career on $38,000 a year in New York City. Do you have any idea what that's like? You never said you were struggling. Because I didn't want to burden you. Because I was raised to be independent and not ask for handouts. Meanwhile, you were literally sending handouts to Sloan using money that Dad thought was going to me. There was a long pause. Your father didn't need to know the details of how I allocated our family resources. That's when it clicked. Dad doesn't know, does he? He thinks he's been supporting both his daughters equally. What did you tell him? She didn't answer. That was answer enough. I have to go, I said. I'm being discharged. Cheyenne, don't be dramatic. I hung up. A doctor came in shortly after. She told me I was severely malnourished and anemic. She asked if I was food insecure. I had to explain that yes, technically I was, but it wasn't for lack of trying. She looked at me with such pity. I wanted to sink through the floor. Dad called back an hour later. I'm driving down to the city. We need to talk in person. Dad, you don't have to. I'm already on the road. He showed up at my apartment 4 hours later. I'd never been so embarrassed in my life. He stood in the doorway of my 400-square-foot studio, taking in the mattress on the floor because I couldn't afford a bed frame. The mini fridge that barely worked. The paint peeling off the walls my landlord refused to fix. How long have you been living like this? He asked quietly. Since I moved here, I said, sitting on my single folding chair, the only other piece of furniture I owned. It's fine, Dad. Lots of people start out this way in New York. He walked over to the fridge and opened it. 1 jar of peanut butter. A 1/4 gallon of milk. Some questionable leftovers from the Chinese place down the street that I'd been stretching across 3 meals. Your mother told me she's been transferring the money to your account every month, he said, still staring into the fridge. She showed me the bank statements. Regular transfers. Never missed one. To whose account? He pulled out his phone and showed me. There it was, a joint account in my mother's and Sloane's names. Every month, like clockwork, $3,500 deposited. The account description read, Sloane's Support Fund. I actually had to sit down on the floor. She created a fake account. She literally committed fraud to funnel money to Sloane. I don't think it's legally fraud since it's my money and I'm her husband, he said, sitting down next to me on the floor, which must have been hard on his knees. But it's definitely something. He put his arm around me. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I should have verified. I should have checked in more. I just assumed. You assumed Mom was honest. I assumed a lot of things. Here's what's going to happen, he said, his voice firm. First, I'm transferring $5,000 to your actual account right now for immediate expenses. Second, you're coming home this weekend and we're going to have a family meeting. Third, your mother is going to write you a check for every penny that should have gone to you. Dad, you don't have to $126,000, Cheyenne. That's not including the interest you should have earned if you'd been able to save it. You could have been building an emergency fund, contributing to a retirement account, maybe even saving for a down payment on a real apartment. Instead, you've been starving. The word hung in the air between us. I'm handling this, he continued, his voice harder than I'd ever heard it. Your mother and I are going to have a very long conversation about financial transparency and trust. And Sloane is going to learn that actions have consequences. The family meeting that weekend was nuclear. We sat in the dining room where we used to have Sunday dinners. Now the room felt foreign, like a stage set for a play I didn't want to be in. Sloane showed up late, of course, breezing in wearing designer workout clothes and carrying a juice from some trendy cleanse place. She'd gotten extensions since I'd last seen her. Long blonde waves that probably cost more than my monthly rent. What's this about? She asked, dropping into a chair and pulling out her phone. I have a casting at 4. Dad slid a piece of paper across the table to her. That's a payment plan. You're going to pay your sister back every dollar of the money that should have gone to her. Sloane barely glanced at it. What are you talking about? The $126,000 that Mom embezzled from your sister's allowance to fund your modeling career. Mom flinched at the word embezzled. Robert, that's not fair. I was trying to help both our daughters. By lying to me for 3 years? By letting Cheyenne struggle in poverty while Sloane got professional hair and makeup for Instagram photo shoots. Sloane had gone pale. I didn't know. Mom just said she was helping me out. With someone else's money, I said. It was the first time I'd spoken directly to her. Did you ever wonder where it was coming from? Did you think Mom just had unlimited funds to throw at your dream? I thought Dad was supporting me. Sloane's voice went shrill. Mom said Dad wanted to help me succeed. Dad's expression could have frozen lava. I wanted to help both of you succeed equally. That was always the deal. Your mother decided to reallocate funds without my knowledge or consent. Mom stood up abruptly. I will not be painted as the villain here. Sloane had a time-sensitive opportunity. Modeling has an age limit. Cheyenne's career could wait. Wait. I felt something crack inside me. I've been waiting. Waiting for my life to start. Waiting to feel financially stable. Waiting to stop choosing between electricity and groceries. Do you know what I did on my 25th birthday? I walked 40 blocks in the rain because I couldn't afford the subway. I got to work, soaked through, and I still stayed late because I was terrified of losing my job. Because that job was the only thing standing between me and homelessness. "You're being overdramatic," Mom said, but her voice wavered. Dad pulled out his phone and showed her something. "This is the discharge summary from the hospital. Malnutrition, anemia, dehydration. The doctor recommended a nutritionist and regular monitoring. Our daughter collapsed because she hasn't been eating properly, Linda." The fight went out of Mom's face. Sloane was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I really didn't know, Cheyenne. I swear I didn't know it was your money." "But you knew someone was paying for everything," I said. "The apartments in Miami, the photo shoots, the gym memberships, the meal prep services. You had to know that modeling doesn't pay much at first." "Where did you think the money was coming from?" She didn't have an answer. The payment plan Dad had drawn up was aggressive. Sloane would pay me back $2,000 a month until the debt was cleared, which would take her just over 5 years, plus interest calculated at a modest 3% annually. "I can't afford that," Sloane protested. "My rent alone is $2,500. "Then get a roommate," Dad said flatly. "Get a day job. Figure it out the way Cheyenne has been figuring it out. Your career will survive you working part-time at a coffee shop or retail store, like millions of other aspiring models do." Cheyenne worked 2 jobs through college. "I think you can handle one." Mom tried to negotiate on Sloane's behalf, but Dad shut her down. "You lost your credibility in this family, Linda. I'm still processing what you did, and honestly, I'm not sure what our marriage looks like after this. For now, you're sleeping in the guest room." I'd never heard my father talk to my mother like that. They'd always presented a united front, the perfect suburban couple with their perfect suburban life. Seeing that facade crack was almost as shocking as discovering the missing money. Mom wrote me a check that day for the full amount. Dad made her do it from their joint savings account, which apparently had enough to cover it. "We were saving for a kitchen renovation," he told me later. "It can wait. This can't." The check sat in my purse for 3 days before I could bring myself to deposit it. It felt surreal seeing that many zeros after my name. I'd never had more than $3,000 in my account at once, and that was only briefly after a tax refund. The first thing I did was go to the doctor for a full checkup. Then the dentist, who found 3 cavities that had been forming. I paid for the fillings in cash, and it felt like a power move, even though no one was watching. I bought groceries without looking at prices. I stood in Trader Joe's, filling my cart with fresh vegetables and good cheese and the fancy granola I'd always walked past, and I cried in the checkout line. The cashier asked if I was okay, and I just nodded, unable to explain that I was mourning all the years I'd deprived myself unnecessarily. I bought real furniture, a bed frame, a desk, a comfortable chair, kitchen supplies beyond 1 pot and 2 forks, clothes that actually fit and weren't from the clearance rack at Target. I got my hair cut at a real salon instead of the beauty school where students practiced on live models. But the anger didn't go away. Every time I bought something I needed, something I should have been able to afford years ago, I thought about Sloane. Sloane getting spray tans and eyelash extensions. Sloane at pool parties with other aspiring models, drinking expensive cocktails. Sloane's Instagram, which I'd scrolled through late at night, full of beach photo shoots and sponsored content for teeth whitening kits. I thought about my mother, who'd looked me in the eye at every holiday dinner and asked how I was doing, knowing full well she was siphoning away money that could have changed my life. Who'd listened to me talk about picking up freelance work on weekends and never once felt guilty enough to come clean. Work became my sanctuary after everything exploded. My colleagues didn't know the details, just that I'd had a health scare and was recovering. They were kind in that distant, professional way New Yorkers do kindness, bringing me coffee, not scheduling early meetings, asking if I needed anything without prying into why. My boss, Jennifer, called me into her office about a month after I'd returned. She was in her late 40s, sharp and efficient, the kind of woman who intimidated and inspired me in equal measure. "Close the door," she said, and my stomach dropped. Despite the raise, I still lived with the anxiety that I could lose everything at any moment. She gestured to the chair across from her desk. "I'm going to be direct. When you collapsed, it scared me. Made me realize I've been pushing you too hard without checking if you had the resources to sustain that pace. I'm fine now, I said quickly. It won't happen again. Let me finish. She leaned back. I did some asking around. Found out what we're paying you. Cheyenne, you're one of our strongest performers, and we've been underpaying you significantly compared to industry standards. My heart started pounding. I'm correcting that effective immediately. Your salary is now $85,000, and you're being promoted to senior account manager. You'll also get a signing bonus of $10,000 for the promotion, which should have happened 6 months ago. I sat there, stunned, unable to form words. Additionally, she continued, I'm putting you on the fast track for associate director. Keep performing at this level, and you'll be there within 18 months. That's a 6-figure position with equity options. I don't know what to say, I managed. Say you'll stop trying to survive on willpower alone. Say you'll take your lunch breaks and use your vacation days. Say you'll treat yourself like the valuable employee you are instead of someone who has to earn the right to exist. Her expression softened. I had a daughter about your age. If she'd been suffering the way you were, I'd want someone to look out for her. I left her office and went to the bathroom to cry. Not sad tears this time, but something else. Relief, maybe, or the strange feeling of being seen after years of invisibility. The first payment from Sloan was late. Dad called to tell me. She says the casting she booked didn't pay as much as expected, and she needed to cover her rent. So, she's already defaulting. I'm handling it. I'll cover this month, but I told her if she's late again, there will be additional consequences. Dad, you can't keep bailing her out. That's how we got here. He sighed heavily. I know, old habits. I'll do better. But he covered the second month too, when Sloan claimed her agency had delayed payment. And the third month when she said she'd had to pay for emergency dental work. I confronted him about it. You're letting her off the hook. I'm not. I'm just. She's my daughter, too, Cheyenne. I'm trying to balance. There is no balance, Dad. There's accountability or there isn't. She's a 24-year-old adult. If her modeling career isn't supporting her lifestyle, she needs to change her lifestyle. You're right, he admitted. But she's struggling. I was struggling for 3 years while she was living it up in Miami. That's when I realized Dad was never going to enforce the payment plan. He loved us both, and he couldn't stand to see Sloan suffer, even if her suffering was self-inflicted, even if it was the natural consequence of choices she'd made. So, I took matters into my own hands. Sloan's Instagram had about 15,000 followers. Not huge by influencer standards, but respectable. She tagged brands constantly, hoping for sponsorships. She posted about her journey as a model, carefully curated shots. That made her life look glamorous and aspirational. I spent a week just watching her content. Stories about her morning routine that included a $20 smoothie. Posts from rooftop pools with captions about manifestation and gratitude. Videos of her getting ready for castings, showing off makeup palettes that cost more than my weekly grocery budget used to be. What struck me most was how she'd constructed this narrative of the struggling artist, the girl chasing her dreams against all odds. She posted motivational quotes about perseverance. She talked about rejection, about the hard days, about the moments she wanted to give up. But there was no mention of the safety net. No acknowledgement of the monthly deposits that meant she never had to choose between rent and food. No recognition that her struggle was subsidized by someone else's actual suffering. I created a burner account and started commenting on her posts. Nothing aggressive, just questions. How do you afford living in Miami on model pay? Must be nice to have family support. Love that your parents funded your dream while your sister was starving. The first few comments got deleted quickly. Sloan was moderating her page, keeping the narrative clean. So, I tried a different approach. I found other aspiring models in her comments, people who were genuinely struggling, and I engaged with them, asked about their experiences, their challenges, built credibility. Then I started asking the same questions on her posts, but from an account that looked legitimate, with history and engagement. Harder to dismiss as a troll. Other people started asking questions too. The algorithm picked up on the engagement. Her comment section became a mix of supportive fans and curious skeptics. One girl, another model, commented, "Girl, I'm eating rice and beans for every meal and taking the bus 2 hours to castings. Drop the secret to affording that lifestyle." Someone else added, "The cognitive dissonance of posting about your struggle from a luxury apartment is something." I watched it unfold with a satisfaction that probably made me a terrible person, but I'd spent 3 years being the good person, the one who suffered silently. And where had it gotten me? Then someone who knew both of us from high school connected the dots. "Wait, isn't your sister Cheyenne working like 80 hours a week in NYC? Didn't she pass out from not eating? But your parents were funding your modeling." The post got traction. Screenshots spread. Someone created a TikTok about it. One of those storytime videos where they narrate the drama. It got 200,000 views. I should have felt guilty. Instead, I felt vindicated. My phone rang at 2 in the morning. Sloan. Hysterical and screaming. "What did you do? What the hell did you do?" "I don't know what you're talking about," I said. I was in my new bed in my new apartment, surrounded by furniture I bought with money that should have been mine all along. The comments. The TikToks. Someone leaked our whole family situation, and now everyone thinks I'm a spoiled brat who stole from my sister. Did you? I didn't know. You know I didn't know. I know you chose not to ask questions because ignorance was convenient. People are sending me death threats, Cheyenne. They're calling me a parasite. They're messaging the brands I work with, trying to get me fired. My agency called and said they're reassessing our relationship. Do you understand what you've done? I didn't do anything. I didn't tell anyone anything. But here's a thought. Maybe if you'd spent the last few months actually paying me back instead of making excuses, you'd have something to show people. Proof that you're making it right. I was going to pay. I just needed time too. You needed time to keep living the same lifestyle while pretending to be accountable. You wanted the appearance of making amends without the actual sacrifice. She was crying now. Those desperate, hiccuping sobs. Please, please, just post something. Tell people it's not as bad as it sounds. Tell them we're working it out as a family. Are we? Because Dad's been making your payments for you. The line went quiet except for her ragged breathing. You didn't know I knew that, did you? He told me he was holding you accountable, but he couldn't stand to see you struggle, so he's been covering for you, just like Mom did. And you've been letting him. What do you want from me? Her voice was small now, defeated. I want you to get a real job. I want you to move somewhere you can actually afford. I want you to understand what it's like to check your bank account before buying coffee. To meal prep rice and beans for a week. To lie awake at night doing math about whether you can afford to turn on the heat. I want you to live the way I lived. You want me to suffer? I want you to grow up. I hung up before she could respond. The fallout was immediate and brutal. Sloane's Instagram comments became a war zone. Some people defended her, saying everyone made mistakes, that she was just a kid who'd been misled by her mother. Others were merciless, digging up old posts and pointing out every luxury she'd taken for granted. One user created a comparison post, screenshots of Sloane's designer clothes and expensive brunches next to a calculation of what I'd been living on. While she was paying $40 for avocado toast, her sister was eating expired food from the office fridge. While she was getting $200 hair treatments, her sister was fainting from malnutrition. Make it make sense. It went viral. Really viral. Millions of views, thousands of shares. News outlets picked it up as a story about privilege and family betrayal. A local news station in Connecticut somehow found out about the hospital incident and ran a piece. Local woman collapses from malnutrition while sister lives lavishly on stolen allowance. They interviewed people from my high school. Former teachers who remembered me as hardworking and responsible. Remembered Sloane as the pretty one who always got what she wanted. Mom called me furious. Are you happy now? Are you satisfied? Your sister's life is falling apart. Like mine did. This is different. She's getting attacked by strangers on the internet. People are threatening her. And I was starving. Literally starving. But that was fine because it was happening quietly. I raised you better than this vindictive cruelty. I laughed, sharp and bitter. You raised me to be a doormat, to smile and accept whatever scraps I was given, to never make waves or demand better. Well, I'm done with that version of myself. She's your sister. And I was your daughter. Did that matter when you were stealing from me? She didn't have an answer for that. Sloane posted an apology video 2 days after the TikTok exploded. She was makeup-free, sitting on what looked like her bed, eyes red from crying. It was very carefully worded, obviously coached by someone who understood crisis management. I want to address the situation with my sister, she began, her voice shaking. First, I want to say that I take full responsibility for my actions, even though I didn't fully understand the situation at the time. I was incredibly privileged, and I didn't ask the questions I should have asked about where the money was coming from. She paused, wiping her eyes. My mother told me that our dad wanted to support my modeling career, and I believed her without verifying. That was naive and selfish. While I was pursuing my dreams, my sister was struggling in ways I can't even imagine. And I benefited from money that should have gone to her. The comments were already rolling in, split between support and skepticism. I'm taking a step back from modeling to focus on personal growth and making this right, she continued. I've gotten a job. I'm moving to a cheaper apartment, and I'm going to pay my sister back every penny I owe her, plus interest. This will take years, and it should. Actions have consequences, and I need to face mine. She looked directly into the camera. To my sister Cheyenne, if you're watching this, I know I can't undo the damage. I know sorry isn't enough, but I'm going to spend however long it takes proving that I've changed, that I understand what I did, and that I'm committed to making it right. You deserve better from me, from our family, from everyone. I'm so sorry. The video ended. I watched it 3 times, looking for signs of performance, of calculated manipulation. Maybe it was there. Maybe she learned how to perform sincerity the same way she'd learned to perform for the camera. Or maybe, somewhere under the polish and the coaching, there was real remorse. I still didn't comment, but I did notice when she posted a photo 2 weeks later wearing a uniform from a high-end boutique in Miami's design district. The caption read, "Day 1 building something real this time." The comments were more supportive now. People love a redemption arc. I put my phone away and went back to work. She got a job at a high-end boutique in Miami, selling clothes to the kind of women she'd been trying to become. The irony wasn't lost on me. She moved into a cheaper apartment with 2 roommates. Her Instagram posts became less frequent, less polished. The first payment that actually came from her account, not Dad's, arrived 4 months after the original agreement. It was only $1,500, not the agreed-upon $2,000, but it was something. I didn't thank her. I just sent a receipt and a running total of what she still owed. Mom tried to rebuild our relationship through emails, long rambling messages about how she'd made a mistake, how she'd been trying to help both of us in different ways, how she hoped I could forgive her someday. I read them but didn't respond. What was there to say? Sorry, didn't pay my rent for 3 years. Sorry, didn't give me back the nutrients my body had been missing. Sorry, didn't undo the shame of using the food pantry or the anxiety of checking my bank account before every purchase. Dad and Mom separated 6 months after everything came out. He moved into a condo closer to the city, and we started having dinner together once a month, just the 2 of us. No performance, no pretense. The divorce proceedings were quiet but brutal. Dad's lawyer had advised him to document everything, the fake account, the transfers, the lies. In Connecticut, financial infidelity was grounds for a fault-based divorce, which meant Mom could lose a significant portion of the marital assets. I don't want to destroy her, Dad told me over dinner at a small Italian place near his new condo. But I can't pretend this didn't happen. The trust is gone. You could have done this quietly, I said. Separated without anyone knowing why. He shook his head. Your mother needs to face consequences. If I just let it slide, if I protect her from the fallout, she'll never actually change. She'll just get better at hiding things. It was strange seeing this side of my father. Growing up, he'd been the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed over conflicts and found compromises. Now he was drawing hard lines, making difficult choices, choosing accountability over comfort. How are you doing with all this? I asked. Really? He set down his fork, considering. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I feel like I didn't know the woman I was married to for 30 years. But I also feel like I failed you by not paying closer attention, by trusting blindly instead of verifying. You're not responsible for Mom's choices. Maybe not, but I'm responsible for mine. I chose to believe the best of her without evidence. I chose not to check in with you more carefully, not to visit your apartment, not to notice the warning signs. He looked at me with such pain. You lost weight, Cheyenne. Significant weight. Your clothes hung off you the last few times we saw each other. And I told myself you were just busy with work. I didn't want to pry. Didn't want to be the overbearing parent. And that choice, that decision to give you space, it nearly killed you. Dad, let me finish. I'm proud of you for surviving this, for building a life despite everything working against you. But I'm also sorry that you had to be that strong, that resilient. You should have been able to rely on your family. You should have been able to fail safely, knowing we'd catch you. Instead, we pushed you off a cliff and expected you to fly. I'd never heard him talk like this. Growing up, emotions were managed, contained, expressed through actions rather than words. This raw honesty was new territory for both of us. I'm okay now, I said, because I didn't know what else to say. Are you? Or have you just gotten good at pretending? The question hit harder than I expected, because he was right. I built this new life, this stable life, but I still checked my bank account compulsively. Still felt guilty buying anything non-essential. Still woke up sometimes in the middle of the night, heart racing, convinced it was all going to disappear. I'm in therapy, I admitted, trying to work through it. Good. That's good. He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. I should have noticed sooner. I'm sorry I didn't. The divorce was finalized 8 months later. Mom got the house, but had to refinance to buy out Dad's share. He got most of the liquid assets, which seemed fair given that she'd misappropriated a significant amount. She also had to pay his legal fees, which her lawyer had fought viciously against. I didn't attend the final hearing. Neither did Sloane, though she was still in contact with both parents, trying to maintain relationships with everyone. I didn't begrudge her that. She was trying to navigate an impossible situation, and unlike me, she still believed in the possibility of family reconciliation. I should have noticed, Dad said over pasta one evening. The signs were all there. You lost weight. You stopped coming home as often. You seemed stressed every time we talked. I just thought you were working hard, paying your dues. You trusted Mom. That's not a character flaw. It is when that trust enables harm to my child. We sat in silence for a while, and then he asked about work. I'd gotten another promotion, finally. The collapse had been a turning point in weird ways. My boss felt guilty about pushing me so hard. And when I recovered, they restructured my role and gave me a substantial raise. I was making $165,000 now, which was actually good for New York. Combined with the money Mom had repaid, I was actually building savings. I'm proud of you, Dad said. You survived something that would have broken a lot of people. But I hadn't just survived. I'd been broken. I was just learning to function with the cracks. Therapy helped. I found a sliding scale clinic and started processing the betrayal, the anger, the complicated grief of losing the family I thought I had. My therapist asked if I wanted to work toward forgiveness. Maybe someday, I told her, but not today. Sloane sent me a Christmas card the first year after everything happened. It had a generic winter scene on the front and a handwritten note inside. I know I can't undo what happened, but I'm trying to be better. I hope you can see that. I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. The second year, she sent another card with a longer note. She'd been promoted to assistant manager at the boutique. She'd started taking business classes at community college. She was thinking about opening her own store someday, something sustainable and ethical. She included a check for $3,000, extra beyond her regular payments. I deposited the check but still didn't respond. The third year, she showed up at my apartment. I almost didn't let her in. She stood in the hallway looking nervous, holding a coffee carrier with 2 drinks. I should have called, she said, but I was afraid you'd say no. I would have. Yeah. She shifted her weight. I'm in the city for a trade show, Fashion Week stuff. I thought maybe we could talk. I considered slamming the door. It would have been satisfying, final. But I was curious about who she'd become. This version of my sister who worked retail and went to community college instead of chasing photo shoots and runway dreams. "You have 10 minutes, I said, stepping aside. We sat on my couch, the nice one I'd bought with my reclaimed money, and drank our coffees in awkward silence. "Your place is really nice," she finally said. "Thanks. I can afford furniture now." She winced. "I deserve that." "You deserve worse than that, but I'm working on not being petty." "Are you?" she asked. Because the Instagram thing was pretty petty. I'd wondered if she knew. "Did you have proof it was me?" "No, but who else would it be?" She sat down her coffee. "Look, I'm not here to relitigate everything. I know I screwed up. I know I was selfish and willfully ignorant, and I benefited from Mom's lies. I know all of that. Then why are you here?" "Because you're my sister and I miss you." Something twisted in my chest. Painful and sharp. "You miss the sister who didn't know you'd stolen from her. That person doesn't exist anymore." "I know." Her voice cracked. "But maybe we could figure out who we are now. Without Mom in the middle, without Dad trying to keep the peace. Without all the history, just us." I wanted to say no. Wanted to stay angry. Stay justified in my rage. Anger was clean. Anger didn't require vulnerability. But I was tired. 3 years of being angry was exhausting. "I don't forgive you," I said clearly. "I might never forgive you, but I'm willing to see if we can exist in the same room without me wanting to set you on fire." A laugh bubbled out of her, surprised and slightly hysterical. "That's fair. That's more than fair." We met for coffee the next month and the month after that. The conversations were stilted at first, carefully avoiding anything deeper than surface-level updates, but gradually we found a rhythm. She told me about the boutique, how she discovered she actually liked the business side of fashion more than modeling, how she was learning about inventory management and customer relations and profit margins, how she'd realized that the modeling world had been making her miserable anyway, constantly judging her body, pitting her against other women, reducing her to a collection of measurements. I told her about my work, the clients I was landing, the campaigns I was proud of, about my apartment and my life, and the version of myself I was building from scratch. We didn't talk about Mom much. She was still in the house in Connecticut, still married to Dad technically, though they lived separately. She'd started therapy, too, apparently. Sloane had lunch with her occasionally. I didn't. "She asks about you," Sloane said once. "She can keep asking." For years after the collapse, Sloane made her final payment. The account showed 0 balance owed, plus interest. She'd actually paid ahead on some months, doubling up when she got bonuses or tax refunds. She took me to dinner to celebrate somewhere nice in the West Village. We split a bottle of wine and ordered appetizers we didn't need. "I know this doesn't make us even," she said, raising her glass. "Money can't buy back the years or the trust or the relationship we had, but it's done." I did what I said I would do. I clinked my glass against hers. "You did. So, where do we go from here?" I'd been thinking about that question for months. The anger had faded to something softer, more like sadness. Sadness for the sisters we'd been before money and lies and betrayal had complicated everything. Sadness for the family that had imploded. But also hope, fragile and tentative, that maybe we could build something new. "I don't know," I admitted, "but I'm willing to find out." It wasn't forgiveness. Not exactly. It was something more complicated, more honest, an acknowledgement that people were flawed and families were messy. And sometimes the best you could do was show up and try. We finished dinner and walked along the High Line, talking about everything and nothing. Sloane showed me pictures of the store she was planning to open, sketches, business plans, spreadsheets. I told her about the promotion I was up for, how I was finally feeling stable, secure, like I'd built a life I could be proud of. "I'm sorry I wasn't there for the hard part," she said as we watched the sunset paint the Hudson River gold. "You were the hard part." "I know." She turned to look at me. "But I'm here now if you'll let me be." I thought about the girl who'd collapsed in a conference room, malnourished and desperate. The girl who'd eaten expired yogurt and walked through rain to save subway fare. The girl who'd lost everything she thought she knew about her family. She was still part of me. That girl, her scars were my scars. But I was more than her now. Stronger, harder, more careful with my trust. And maybe, just maybe, there was room in this harder version of myself for a sister who'd finally learned what it meant to show up. We'll see, I said. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. It was a beginning, which was more than I thought possible. We walked back toward the subway in comfortable silence. Two sisters with a complicated history and an uncertain future, figuring it out one step at a time. And for now, that was enough. We'll see, I said. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. It was a beginning, which was more than I thought possible. We walked back toward the subway in comfortable silence. Two sisters with a complicated history and an uncertain future, figuring it out one step at a time. And for now, that was enough. The We'll See became a monthly coffee, then an occasional dinner. It wasn't the kind of easy, effortless sisterhood you see in movies, full of shared secrets and spontaneous road trips. Ours was built brick by slow brick, cemented with awkward pauses and carefully chosen words. I watched Sloane, scrutinizing her, looking for cracks in her sincerity. Was this real, or was it just another performance? Was this new person, the one talking about spreadsheets and inventory, the real Sloane? Or was she still the girl who believed everything was owed to her? My therapist, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, helped me navigate this new terrain. Trust is a choice, Cheyenne, she'd say, her voice calm and steady. And it's okay if you choose to give it in small increments or not at all. You're allowed to protect yourself. I was learning that lesson the hard way. Building walls had become second nature, a necessary defense mechanism. Now, learning to lower them, even a little, felt terrifying. Sloane, to her credit, kept showing up. She'd bring me updates on her business classes, the ideas she was sketching out for her sustainable boutique. She talked about the challenges of working retail, the demanding customers, the long hours. There was no glamour in it, just grit. She'd complain about her roommates, the Miami heat, the endless struggle to save money. And I'd listen, occasionally offering a piece of advice gleaned from my own corporate climbing. It was mundane, normal even. And that was what felt so revolutionary. My own life was flourishing in ways I hadn't dared to dream of before. The promotion to senior account manager had been a game changer, not just for my bank account, but for my confidence. I was good at my job. Really good. I thrived on the strategic thinking, the client presentations, the satisfaction of seeing a campaign I'd spearheaded succeed. Jennifer, my boss, became a mentor, pushing me to take on bigger challenges, to speak up, to advocate for myself. She saw potential I didn't even know I possessed. My apartment, the one I'd bought furniture for, felt like a sanctuary. It was small, but it was mine. No more landlord issues, no more peeling paint. I learned to cook, experimenting with actual recipes instead of just ramen. I started a small herb garden on my windowsill. These were the simple luxuries I'd craved for so long. Dad was finding his own rhythm in his new condo. He'd started taking art classes, something he'd always wanted to do but never made time for. Our dinners became less about rehashing the past and more about current events, his newfound hobbies, my career. He looked lighter, I thought. Like a burden had been lifted. He'd often reiterate his apologies, his regret for not seeing my struggles sooner. I'd tell him I understood, that he wasn't to blame for Mom's actions. And I meant it. He was a good man who'd been blindsided, just like me. He'd made his amends, and he continued to do so with his unwavering support. Mom. She remained a ghost in my life. Her emails became less frequent, more desperate, then stopped altogether. Sloane would sometimes mention her, usually with a sigh. Mom's still struggling, she'd say. She really misses Dad. And she misses you. I'd just nod or change the subject. The thought of seeing her, of having to confront that raw wound again, was too much. Not yet. Maybe never. Dr. Rodriguez called it setting boundaries. I called it self-preservation. About a year after our Highline walk, Sloane called me, her voice buzzing with excitement. It's happening, Che. I found a space. In Wynwood. It's tiny, but the rent is manageable, and it's got amazing foot traffic. She was opening her boutique. Sustainable Threads, she called it. She wanted me to come down for the soft opening. My gut reaction was to decline. Miami, the city where she'd lived her lavish, subsidized life. But then I pictured her face, heard the genuine joy in her voice. This wasn't a modeling campaign. This was her money, her hard work. I bought a ticket. Walking into Sustainable Threads was like stepping into Sloane's brain, if her brain was organized and thoughtfully curated. The space was bright, filled with natural light, racks of beautifully designed clothing made from organic cottons and recycled materials. She greeted me with a shy, uncertain hug. "You came," she whispered, her eyes shining. Of course I came. I looked around. "It's really impressive, Sloane." She beamed. "I designed the layout myself. And I sourced all the initial inventory from small, ethical designers. It's been so much work." She showed me around, explaining her vision, her pricing strategy, the challenges of competing with fast fashion. She was passionate, knowledgeable, and completely in her element. This wasn't the flighty, image-obsessed Sloane I'd known. This was an entrepreneur, a businesswoman. I watched her interact with customers, explaining the origins of a fabric, the story behind a designer. She was articulate and genuine. Gone was the vapid influencer persona. This was something real. We closed up shop that night, and she took me to a small, unpretentious restaurant. Over Cuban sandwiches, she admitted, I had to take out a small business loan. It was terrifying. Every penny counts. Every sale matters. I actually lie awake at night doing math, just like you said. She gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. It's humbling. Good, I said, without thinking. Then I softened my tone. No, I mean, it's good that you're experiencing it. That you understand what it takes. She nodded. I do. And I think about you every day. About what you went through. Her eyes met mine, earnest and vulnerable. It makes me work harder. To prove to myself and to you that I can do this right. That I'm not just a parasite. That word, parasite, hit me hard. It was one I'd hurled at her in my anger, or at least thought in my head. To hear her internalize it, to see the pain in her eyes, was a stark reminder of the collateral damage of that whole mess. You're not a parasite, Sloane, I said, my voice softer than I intended. You're building something. Something ethical, something you believe in. It was the closest I'd come to true praise, and her face lit up like a Christmas tree. The boutique had its ups and downs. There were months when sales were slow, and she called me, panicking about making rent for the store. There were other months when she hit her targets, and she'd send me excited texts. She even asked me for marketing advice once, which felt like a huge leap. I helped her set up a more effective social media strategy, focusing on the ethical aspects of her brand rather than just aesthetics. Her follower count grew steadily, organically, filled with people who genuinely cared about sustainability. She was building a community, not just a brand. Meanwhile, my own career continued its upward trajectory. I became a director, exactly as Jennifer had predicted, even exceeding her timeline. I managed a team, traveled internationally for campaigns, and contributed to company strategy. The girl who used to faceplant from malnutrition was now a force in the marketing world. My life was good. I dated. I formed strong friendships. I was meticulous with my finances, still had a slight panic when I saw a big expense, but the anxiety was less debilitating. I'd also finally started investing some of the money that Mom had repaid, watching it grow with a quiet satisfaction that was entirely my own. I was no longer just surviving, I was thriving. One evening, after a particularly challenging therapy session where Dr. Rodriguez had gently pushed me to examine my lingering anger towards Mom, I found myself looking at old family photos. Pictures of us as kids. Sloane and I, laughing, arms around each other. Mom, younger, vibrant, holding us close. It was a life I barely recognized, a memory tinged with both nostalgia and deep pain. I picked up my phone, my thumb hovering over Mom's contact. My stomach churned. What would I say? What did I even want from her? An apology? An explanation? Neither felt adequate for what she'd put me through. I put the phone down. Not today. But the seed had been planted. About 5 years after the collapse, Sloan and I were having our usual monthly dinner in New York. Sustainable Threads was doing well enough that she could afford to fly up more often. She was talking about expanding, maybe a second location. She looked healthy, happy, genuinely fulfilled. She was still glamorous, but it was a different kind of glamour now, earned through hard work and genuine passion. You know, she said, cutting into her steak, Mom called me last week. She's not doing great. The house is huge for just her, and she's been talking about selling it. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. And she mentioned she saw one of your new ad campaigns. Said it was brilliant. She said she was proud of you. Sloan watched my reaction carefully. I felt a familiar sting of resentment. Proud of me now? After everything? After watching me starve? Easy to be proud when I'm successful and self-sufficient, isn't it? Not so much when I was barely scraping by. Sloan put down her knife and fork. Cheyenne, I know. I really do. And I'm not defending her. But she's alone. And she's changing. Slowly. Therapy helps, I think. She's in therapy? I scoffed. Good for her. Doesn't erase 3 years of deliberate deception. No, it doesn't. And she knows that. She told me she understands why you haven't spoken to her. She just hoped. That maybe one day. Sloan sighed. I don't know, Che. I just see a very sad, very lonely woman who made a huge mistake. A mistake that cost her everything. Her words hung in the air. A huge mistake that cost her everything. Was that what I wanted? For her to lose everything? I thought back to the pain I felt, the indignity, the betrayal. And then I thought about the strength I'd gained, the resilience, the life I'd built from the ground up. I hadn't lost everything. I'd gained myself. I'm not saying you have to forgive her, Sloan added, sensing my internal conflict. But maybe you could hear her out. Just once. For yourself, if not for her. The idea lodged itself in my brain, nagging at me. Dr. Rodriguez had suggested it too, in her gentle way. Forgiveness isn't for the other person, Cheyenne. It's for you. It's about releasing the hold that anger has on your heart. A few weeks later, I called Mom. My hands were shaking as I dialed. Her voice, when she answered, was hesitant, almost fragile. Cheyenne? Is that really you? Yes, Mom. It's me. My voice felt foreign, stiff. Sloan said you wanted to talk. We agreed to meet for coffee, in a neutral public place, not the old house. The cafe was bustling, a safe anonymity around us. She looked older. Her hair was grayer, her shoulders a little more stooped. The polished suburban veneer was gone, replaced by a vulnerability I'd never seen. Thank you for coming, she said, her voice thin. She looked at me with a desperate hope, like a lost child. I took a deep breath. What do you want to say, Mom? She fidgeted with her napkin. I know there's nothing I can say to make it right. What I did was unforgivable. I deprived you. I lied to your father. I created so much pain. Tears welled in her eyes. I was so lost, Cheyenne. So scared. Sloan was struggling with rejection from agencies, and she was so passionate about modeling. And you were always so capable, so independent. I thought you'd be fine. I thought you could handle it. Her voice cracked. I never intended to hurt you. I truly believed I was helping Sloan and that you didn't need the money as much. I told myself it was fine because you had a job, you were building your career. I rationalized it all away. You watched me get sicker, Mom. You asked me how I was doing at holidays, knowing I was barely eating. You heard me talk about freelance jobs to make ends meet. And you never once thought about coming clean. My voice was rising, despite my efforts to keep it even. The anger was a hot, familiar burn. She flinched. I know. And that's what haunts me. The guilt. The shame. I became so good at compartmentalizing. At pretending. I destroyed our family, Cheyenne. I destroyed my marriage. I alienated my daughter. I regret it more than anything. She was openly weeping now, quiet sobs that she tried to stifle. I'm so sorry. Truly. I've spent years in therapy trying to understand why I did what I did. I allowed my fear for Sloan's future, my own misguided perception of what success looked like, to blind me to your pain. To your basic needs. It was a raw, unfiltered apology. Not the carefully worded excuses of before. It was a broken woman, admitting her brokenness. And seeing her like that, stripped bare of her usual defensiveness, something shifted inside me. The anger didn't vanish, not entirely, but it softened, transmuted into something else. Pity. And a strange, aching sadness for the mother I thought I had, and the one I now saw. "I can't undo it, Mom," I said, my voice calmer now. "I can't forget what happened. It changed me. It broke me. But it also made me stronger. And I'm okay now. I've built my own life." She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. "I see that. And I admire you so much, Cheyenne. You are everything I hoped you would be and more." We talked for another hour, not about the past, but about the present. Her therapy, her plans to sell the house, her own solitude. I didn't offer forgiveness. I couldn't. Not yet. But I offered understanding. And something that felt a little like peace. When we parted, it wasn't with a hug, but a nod. A silent acknowledgement that a door had been opened, however slightly. Years continued to pass. My career soared. I landed a director position, exactly as Jennifer had predicted, even exceeding her timeline. I managed a team, traveled internationally for campaigns, and contributed to company strategy. The girl who used to faceplant from malnutrition was now a force in the marketing world. Sloane's boutique, Sustainable Threads, became a success story. She opened a second location, then a third, carefully expanding her ethical brand. She was featured in business magazines, a champion for sustainable fashion. She even started giving talks to aspiring entrepreneurs, sharing her journey, including the hard lessons learned about accountability and earning your own way. Our relationship, Sloane's and mine, deepened into something truly unique. We weren't just sisters by blood, we were sisters by fire, forged in the crucible of betrayal and survival. We understood each other on a level no one else could. We talked almost daily now. We celebrated successes, commiserated over failures, and supported each other unconditionally. She was my confidant, my friend. She was the one who truly knew the depths of my past struggles and who had actively worked to repair the damage she'd contributed to. Dad, ever the steady presence, found love again. A kind, gentle woman who also enjoyed art and quiet evenings. He was happy, truly happy. He and I still had our monthly dinners, always easy, always supportive. He was proud of both his daughters now, for very different but equally valid reasons. Mom sold the house in Connecticut and moved to a smaller apartment. She never tried to force her way back into my life, never demanded forgiveness. She continued her therapy, living a quieter, more reflective life. I'd get occasional updates from Sloane, always positive. She was volunteering, taking art classes herself, finding a new purpose. One year, on my birthday, a small package arrived. Inside was a beautifully hand-knitted scarf in my favorite color. There was no card, just a small tag with her initial. It was a silent olive branch, a tangible offering of penitence and care. I wore it. Life wasn't perfect, of course. The scars remained. I still occasionally felt a phantom pang of anxiety when I saw a dwindling bank balance, or a flash of distrust when someone seemed too good to be true. Dr. Rodriguez called it post-traumatic growth. I was stronger because of what I'd endured, but the path to that strength was paved with pain. The ultimate resolution wasn't a dramatic reunion with Mom, or a complete erasure of the past. It was an acceptance of the messy, complicated truth of my family. It was finding peace within myself, knowing that I had survived, thrived, and carved out a life that was authentically mine. I had healed, not by forgetting or forgiving on command, but by understanding, by setting boundaries, and by allowing genuine love and support to re-enter my life in its own time. Sloane and I stood on the rooftop of her newest boutique, looking out over the Miami skyline. The city glittered below us, a testament to ambition and dreams. She had built this, brick by brick, with her own hands and her own resilience. "Remember that conversation on the High Line?" she asked, leaning against the railing. Every word I said, a small smile playing on my lips. We said we'll see. And it was a beginning. I think we made it, Che. I looked at my sister, no longer the spoiled model, no longer the unwitting accomplice, but a woman of substance, standing tall and proud in the empire she'd built. And I looked at myself, a woman who had once been broken, malnourished, and invisible, now standing strong, respected, and fully seen. Yeah, Sloane, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I think we did. We clasped hands, a silent pact, a testament to a bond that had been shattered and painstakingly rebuilt. It wasn't the fairy tale ending, where everyone lives happily ever after and all wounds are magically erased. It was better. It was real. It was two sisters, two very different women, who had navigated the wreckage of their past and found a way to build a future together. It was messy, it was imperfect, but it was ours. And it was enough.